Have you ever noticed how some people always end up as the victim, no matter what happens? You try to help, you walk on eggshells, you apologize even when you did nothing wrong, yet somehow, you're always the villain in their story. You start to wonder, is it me? Or are they addicted to being hurt? These people don't just experience pain, they identify with it. Their suffering becomes their language, their safety, their power. And before you realize it, you're caught in a story where no matter what you do, you always end up wrong. The victim mentality isn't just a personality flaw, it's a survival strategy. It's the unconscious belief that power comes from helplessness. When someone can't face their own guilt or shame, they project it outward, rewriting the story, so they become the one who's been wronged. But this isn't always deliberate. It often begins in childhood in homes where emotions were weaponized or love was earned through suffering. A child learns that being in pain brings attention, that helplessness brings safety, and that belief grows quietly into adulthood until pain becomes identity. Victimhood then becomes a shield against accountability and a way to maintain emotional control. It's not about truth anymore, it's about protection. Psychologists call this learned helplessness, a state where someone believes that no action they take will ever make a difference. It starts small. A child grows up in a world where trying never changes the outcome, where effort meets silence, where love feels conditional and boundaries are punished. Over time, the brain learns a painful equation. Trying equals disappointment. Surrender equals safety. So they stop fighting. They stop asking. They stop believing they have power. And that surrender, that helplessness becomes familiar. It becomes comfortable. It becomes identity. Yet strangely, over time, it also becomes rewarding, because when you are helpless, people rush to rescue you. They offer comfort, attention, sympathy. They validate your pain, and that validation feels like love. That's what psychologists call secondary gain, the hidden benefit of staying small, broken, or innocent. You get to avoid responsibility and still receive care. You get to be safe without having to change. But the world keeps moving while they stay still. The cage that once kept them protected becomes a prison. The pity that once felt like love starts to taste like guilt. And even when the door opens, even when freedom is within reach, they hesitate. Because what happens when they leave the cage and realize that no one is coming to save them anymore? Freedom can feel terrifying to someone who has only ever survived through weakness. So they return to what they know. The tears, the stories, the cycle. Not because they want to manipulate you, but because the pain has become home. And home, no matter how dark, always feels safer than the unknown. When you love someone who lives in victimhood, your world starts to shrink around their pain. You start to question yourself. Did I really hurt them? Am I the bad one? You replay conversations in your head, searching for proof that you meant well. You apologize just to keep the peace. You start walking on emotional eggshells, careful not to trigger another storm of guilt or sadness. And slowly, you begin to disappear. You become the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the therapist friend who listens but never gets heard. Their pain becomes the gravity that pulls everything toward it, and your feelings, your needs, your truth start to orbit around them. You begin to believe that your happiness is selfish, that your boundaries are cruel. That love means saving someone, even if it costs you your sanity. But here's the truth most people never tell you. You cannot heal someone who finds safety in being broken. No matter how gentle your words, how much empathy you pour out, how many times you forgive, they will always find a way to turn the story back into their suffering. And every time you rush to fix it, you teach them that pain equals connection, that guilt equals love. Eventually, you stop recognizing yourself. The version of you that used to laugh freely now feels distant, almost ghost-like. You don't realize it at first, but their pain has become your prison. You love them deeply, but the relationship feeds on imbalance. One person bleeds, the other bandages, and both mistake it for intimacy. The truth is, you can care deeply for someone without becoming their savior. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. Compassion doesn't mean carrying what was never yours to hold. Awareness is the first boundary. The moment you recognize the pattern, you begin to loosen its grip. You start to see that not every cry for help wants healing. Some only want attention, validation, or rescue. And you can honor someone's pain without making it your purpose. You are not cruel for stepping back. You are not heartless for saying no. You are choosing peace over pity, clarity over chaos, healing over heroism. Because empathy without limits becomes self-destruction. The greatest act of love you can offer someone stuck in victimhood is to stop participating in the story that keeps them trapped. When you refuse to play the rescuer, you give them the space to find their own strength. And when you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, you begin to remember who you were before guilt became love. Healing isn't about saving anyone. It's about reclaiming yourself. Let them learn. Let them grow. Let them fall and rise again. You don't have to hate them. You don't even have to leave them. You just have to stop losing yourself trying to prove your kindness. Love people without saving them. You can have empathy without absorbing pain that was never yours to carry. Healing doesn't always look like holding on. Sometimes it looks like stepping back with love. Because peace is not cruelty. Boundaries are not betrayal. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is stop being the villain in someone else's story.